Welcome to D&D Builds, where we have an outlet to make all sorts of ridiculous Dungeons & Dragons characters and stop driving the people in our lives insane with them. Today we're going to be diving back into One Piece with Zoro. I want to make sure I get as many of his fighting styles in place, whether it's his 1-sword style, 3-sword style, or 9-sword style. We'll try and cover all of them and see if we can even go further beyond, as well as his access to plenty of his hockey. But first things first, we gotta pick a race. This is going to be pretty straightforward. We're just going to grab human and go with human variant. This allows us to grab a feat, and it should be absolutely no surprise that the feat we're going to grab is dual wielder. This will grant us +1 bonus to our armor class whenever we're wielding a separate melee weapon in each hand, and you can use 2-weapon fighting even when one of those weapons doesn't have the light property. And finally, you can draw or stow 2 weapons at a time. You also get a skill when you choose this race, so we're going to grab insight because Zoro is particularly good at assessing an enemy's tactical skills. Then when it comes to a background, obviously we're just going to go with pirate, which gives us skill proficiencies in athletics and perception, and it gives us tool proficiencies with navigator's tools, although we're probably just going to throw those away because Zoro is notorious for how terrible of a sense of direction he has. And lastly, this gives us tool proficiencies with water vehicles. Then it's time to jump into some stats. We're going to be going with a much more physical build for this one, so we're going to put 15 points into both strength and dexterity, and then boost both of those up with the 1 point that we can throw into each of them being a human variant, bringing them both to 16. Then our constitution we're going to bump to 14 because you need to be able to take some hits. And then our intelligence we're actually going to dump because even though he does have some intelligence when it comes to the battlefield, I'd say that's a bit more wisdom from experience. So we're going to put our wisdom at 10, which I know also isn't very high, but we only have so many points to go around using standard point buy from the player's handbook. And wisdom would also play into his sense of direction, and he's pretty notorious for having absolutely no sense of direction. Then finally our charisma we're just going to dump because we have no points left over, and usually he's pretty cold to most people. And if you like diving into those nitty-gritty details about how a character is built for a game, you can do it even more thanks to this video's sponsor, Southern New Hampshire University. They provide plenty of courses related to game development, and you can even get a degree in it. Whether you want to stay on the artistic side, or if you want to go deep into the code, you can do either. And with over 200 different programs to choose from, SNHU has something for everybody. They've agreed to support content creators like me, so feel free to check out the link in the description down below and request some more information. And for every person that does so, it helps this channel just a little bit more. But now let's get back to the build. Now it's time to pick a starting class, and while I was very tempted to go with something like a monk because he doesn't really wear armor, I think fighter is a bit more fitting just because of his general fighting style, and we need to figure out a way to pull off a full-blown 9-sword technique. So at first level of fighter, you get proficiency in pretty much all weapons and all armor, although we're not really going to use that armor, and you get saving throws in strength and constitution. Finally, you get to choose 2 skills, so I would just grab acrobatics and intimidation. We also get some equipment to start off with, and we can grab 2 martial weapons right from the start, so we're actually going to grab 2 long swords, which we can dual wield thanks to our feat. And adding to that dual wielding, at first level of fighter, we get to pick a fighting style. So of course, we're going to grab the fighting style 2-weapon fighting, allowing us to add our ability score modifier to the damage of our offhanded attack. And since we're wielding 2 weapons right away, we get access to 2 attacks, so we can really do our 2-sword technique right from the get-go. And then lastly, at first level, you get access to second wind. So on your turn as a bonus action, you can regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level, which you can only do once per short or long rest. Then at second level of fighter, you get action surge, allowing you to take 2 actions on a single turn. And if you use this while also using your bonus action to attack with your offhanded weapon, meaning that we're already getting our 3-sword style very quickly. Then at third level, you get a martial archetype. And while Zoro is very strategic on the battlefield, which would really lend itself to a battle master, and battle masters even get a feature called Know Your Enemy, allowing you to better read your enemy and understand their abilities, which is definitely something Zoro would be able to do, I still don't feel like I can go this route, because he is a very heavy believer in the way of the samurai and the bushido. So we're going to be taking the subclass Samurai. When you take this subclass, you get a bonus proficiency from a select list of skills, or you can learn an additional language, but I think we have the majority of his skills pretty well covered, so I'm just going to go ahead and say you pick up some sort of language to help the dubbing into whatever language you happen to watch One Piece in. Additionally, when you choose this subclass, you get Fighting Spirit. So in the middle of battle, you can actually shield yourself while also being able to strike much more true, which feels very Way of the Samurai. When you do this, you gain 5 temporary hit points, and the number of hit points increases when you reach certain levels in Fighter. They increase to 10, points at 10th level and 15 at 15th level. And when you use your bonus action to activate this fighting spirit, you give yourself advantage on all weapon attack rolls until the end of the current turn. You can use this feature 3 times, and you refill those uses when you finish a long rest. Considering this is used to help shield you with temporary hit points, I feel like this is the start of the Buso Shoku Haki, if I'm saying that right, because that haki is all about using spiritual energy to help create invisible armor around yourself. And we're going to add to this at 4th level, because at 4th level, you get an ability score improvement, and we're not going to take an ability score improvement. Instead, we're going to take a feat. We still have not put on any armor, so we want to make sure we're a little bit more protected. We're going to grab the feat Magic Initiate, giving us some spell casting. And we're going to be diving into the wizard spell list. This allows us to grab 1 spell and 2 cantrips from that spell list. So the spell we're going to grab is Mage Armor. So now you can protect yourself while still not wearing any physical armor, making your armor class 13 plus your dexterity modifier. And since you're pretty much always wielding 2 weapons, you get another +1 thanks to your dual wielder feat. Then as far as the 2 cantrips, we're going to grab Booming Blade just because it feels like a key sword skill. And then we're also going to grab Green Flame Blade, which is going to help us recreate the Foxfire style. Then at 5th level of fighter, we get an extra attack, and you can always attack 3 times in a round, doing 2 attacks as your action and 1 as your bonus action. Then at 6th level of fighter, you get an ability score improvement again, because fighters get tons of ability score improvement. So we're going to go ahead and grab another feat, because I want to get another one of his abilities really early on. So we're going to grab Fighting Initiate to grab another fighting style and grab Unarmed Fighting. So that way we can pull off his no sword technique. So now you can do unarmed attacks, dealing 1d6 plus your strength modifier on a hit, or as long as you don't have any weapons in your hand at all, that d6 turns into a d8. Then at 7th level of fighter, we get another feature from being a samurai. We get Elegant Courtier. This has a few random benefits that don't help us at all, but it does also give us proficiency in wisdom saving throws, which is extremely helpful. Then at 8th level of fighter, we get yet again another ability score improvement, and again we're going to take a feat. I know our stats are starting to suffer a little bit, but I really wanted to make sure I get as many abilities as possible early on. We're going to be grabbing the Kenbun Shoku Haki, which is kind of like having a 6th sense and having a great sense of your surroundings. We do already have proficiency in perception, but I want to boost it up even more by taking another fighting style with the feat Fighting Initiate again, and grab the fighting style Blind Fighting, granting you blind sight within 10 feet of you. At least that's what I was going to do, but it turns out you can't add Fighting Initiate twice, which personally I think is really stupid. So if your table allows it, go for it, but if not, you can still get this general idea by taking the feat Alert, giving you a +5 bonus to your initiative. You can't be surprised while you're conscious, and other creatures don't gain advantage on attack rolls against you as a result of being unseen. Then at 9th level of fighter, we get Indomitable, allowing us to re-roll a saving throw once per long rest. Then at 10th level of fighter, we get another feature from being a samurai, Tireless Spirit. So if we don't have any more uses of our fighting spirit when we roll initiative to start a battle, you regain 1 use. Then at 11th level of fighter, we get another extra attack, so we can attack 3 times as our action and still once as our bonus action, bringing us to a basic 4 attacks for our turn. And if we use our action surge, that brings us up to 7 attacks. And then at 12th level of fighter, we get again another ability score improvement, and we're finally going to use it for some actual stats to help our sword fighting, boosting up our strength by 2 points. Then at 13th level, we get another use of Indomitable per long rest, and then at 14th level, we get another ability score improvement. And if you're having trouble tracking all these bonuses, you can always check out my Patreon, linked in the description down below, like these people, and especially Biscuit Gaming, Salvador, Keelon, Lumir97, the Dino21, and Yaksha Senpai. And going above and beyond that, there's my Dungeon Master patrons, Devin Happy, Benjamin, Tristan Bennett, GameStake, Heyo, and Eric Wade. They get additional perks, including having D&D sessions hosted by me that I stream right here on YouTube as well as over on Twitch. And then above and beyond absolutely everything is my God tier level patron, Kilo, who I cannot thank enough for everything he does for my channel. But now back to that ability score improvement. So we're finally going to use it to max out our strength. Then at 15th level, we get another feature from being a samurai, Rapid Strike. So if you have advantage on an attack, you can actually give up the advantage for one of those attack rolls, granting yourself 1 more attack on that turn. You can only use this once per turn, but you can use this a bit more easily in conjunction with Fighting Spirit, which you also gain from being a samurai, because that grants you advantage on all of your attacks until the end of the turn. So you can get advantage on all all of your attacks except for one, and then you get a whole nother attack to use, which usually you have 4 attacks, including your bonus action, but with Rapid Strike, that bumps it up to 5 attacks. And if you use your Action Surge, that goes all the way up to 8 attacks. Then at 16th level of fighter, you get another ability score improvement, so we're going to boost up our dexterity just to help out our armor class a little bit. And then at 17th level of fighter, you get another action surge to use per short or long rest, and another indomitable to use per long rest. Then at 18th level of fighter, you get another feature from being a samurai, strength before death. So if you're pushed all the way down to 0 hit points, you can actually take an entire extra turn before falling unconscious, which feels like a very anime style thing to do. You can only do this once per long rest, but it's still pretty damn cool. Then at 19th level of fighter, we get another ability score improvement, and we're going to take yet again another feat. Zoro is a pretty tough dude, so I'm going to take the feat tough, boosting up our hit points by 2 points per level. Then at 20th level of fighter, we get another extra attack, bringing us to 4 attacks as our action, plus 1 as our bonus action. And this is where we can pull off the 9 sword style, because if we use an action surge, you get 4 more attacks, bringing us to a whopping total of 9 attacks in a single turn. But it doesn't have to stop there. We can go beyond the anime and utilize Rapid Strike, bringing us to 10 attacks. And then if we just so happen to be knocked down to almost dying, we can activate our Strength Before Death from being a samurai, taking an entire extra turn. And remember, Rapid Strike is only once per turn, and this feature lets us take a full turn. So, if you do the entire extra turn all over again using another action surge, that means 10 more attacks, bringing us to a whopping total of 20 attacks without even factoring in some sort of opportunity attack or anything like that, which is absolutely nuts, but it's an anime character, that tends to happen. And since we're dual wielding long swords, which when wielded with a single hand deals 1d8 damage, the maximum amount of damage we're going to be able to pull off with those 20 attacks is going to be 260 damage in a single round. And that's without even factoring in an opportunity attack. Granted, you're going to collapse and be unconscious right at the end of that, but it's still pretty badass and a total anime move. While this build didn't really have any multi-classes, I still threw in plenty of feats to cover as much of Zoro's abilities as possible, and I still definitely considered going tricky with it, multi-classing to get spiritual weapons, so you did technically have a third weapon, but it would be completely useless because if you're already dual wielding, you only have 1 bonus action to use. And I had seen in a comment to try and use a 3 Kreen, since they have an extra set of arms so you can actually wield extra swords. But again, they would be completely useless, and I didn't want to completely swap out the race because then it wouldn't feel like Zoro. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments down below. And if there's any other builds you'd like to see in the future, let me know down there as well, because I had gotten plenty of requests for Zoro and I'm happy I finally got around to it. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my Dungeons & Dragons related content. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button. I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you're trying to pull off swords in both hands and your mouth and whatever else to play as Zoro from One Piece.